Yes and no. The force here, given the size of it, is a larger force. There were intensities at Sago that appear to be at the high level of intensity. We won't know that until the Flames and Forces crew gets done with their efforts, but there appears to be high points of intensity at Sago, but also high points of intensity here. So there are distinctions and differences between the explosions, but there are commonalities, but they may have different bases from which to come. That's not a very good explanation, but yet certain conditions there at Sago and different conditions here, and we're looking at those from that standpoint.
Well, the Sago explosion came from a methane buildup in a sealed off space. Is it surprising to have a comparable explosion in basically an open working area?
Well, you never want it to happen. You hope to God you can prevent it from happening, but it did happen in this instance, and that's what we have to look at.
But I'm just wondering, in other explosions that you've looked at, have you seen a comparable size explosion in an open working area?
That's a good question. I'll have to think about that. I can't think of one that goes this size. If you go back to as far as Farmington, certainly had, in the case of Farmington, explosions that were even larger than this. But I'll have to think through that. There have been some other explosions that have been pretty good size, but that's a good question. We'll have to try to answer that as we go through the process.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? We can go here now.
Davitt, what I was wondering is, were there suggestions you made in the Sago report that haven't been followed through with, and not exactly related to this explosion at UBD, but what has not been implemented from the recommendations you made after Sago?
We've looked at both the Sago and the Aracoma Alma reports after this accident and examined where there was gaps and where there were where some of the recommendations were adopted and not adopted, and whether those adoptions or the lack thereof could have caused this. There are some instances where we think it could have been helpful. We will address that in our report. I haven't memorized the Sago and the Aracoma reports here recently, so I don't want to speak to those, but there were some that deal with the question of modernization of the mining industry, for example, that deal with the introduction of new technology, that deal with the introduction of technologies that exist on the surface that need to be brought down. I think those are some of the ones that we looked at. You recall, though, that both in the case of Aracoma and Sago, we tend to fight the last wars, so that we tend to look at what we found in those cases vis-a-vis the rescue equipment, etc. This is not a case of rescue equipment. This is a case of equipment here we needed at the mine.
Well, some of the things I'm thinking of, you also suggested some fairly low-tech solutions that could have been helpful, such as putting communication wires, I think it was in the mine floor, where it might not be exposed to explosive forces.
That's correct.
Like that have helped in this situation, or was this just too big where everything was destroyed?
I think something like that would have been helpful.
Thank you.
But we will address that as we go.
Okay.
Back to live here.
I understand that your team, as well as Manchin in the state, have interviewed potential staff who lose potential internal impeachment. Because of the previously been the actions manager and they've been involved in few of his previous methane outbursts under the branch. Have you all been able to determine how it was that it ended up on the internal review and been able to determine what, if any, actions taken after those methane outbursts with that thought?
The methane outbursts that you're referring to have been appeared in the newspaper, and those were outbursts that occurred in 2003 and 2004. in the, I believe it was number 16 or 17 panel of the longwall at the Upper Big Branch mine. Those outbursts are a phenomenon that occur in this seam, the Eagle 3 seam, and in some other seams, both in this state as well as across the country, in Alabama and other places. Thank you, sir. That examination, those outbursts, caused both the state agency and the federal agencies to examine the question and to require remedial steps on the part of the company. The question that needs to be asked and that we are pursuing is the question of whether those remedial steps remained in place and continue to be in place up until the present time. The individual involved in this internal review that was removed, this is according to Assistant Secretary Maine at the last family meeting, was the district manager for a period of 1 month in the district that the mine accidents in the mine, these earlier explosions, earlier infusions of gas occurred. And it was felt that the removal of Mr. Giletti would remove any potential conflict. During the course of the month period of time, there was no action that was taken on his behalf or on behalf of anyone else to look at that. Our question is, does the remedial program remain in effect at this mine, given the fact that you have the potential for this problem to occur ongoing? Yes, sir.
Mr. McAteer,